which means all the farmers in Nebraska are going to go bankrupt because they all went out there and voted against their neighbors. 65% of neighbors who are immigrants, okay? Around and find out at this point, you know what I mean?
Now with Trump passing the law that if your kid's on if you put your baby dad on child support, they're going to be getting the money from the child, like for child tax. How the does that work?
Tax breaks to the wealthy, and you do all of these things that in the moment feel right because they get you votes and they get you popularity and they get you all the shit. And then when you have to pay the bills, you realized you've yourself. And that's exactly what Nebraska has done.
Tens of thousands of Nebraskan farmers are going to be bankrupt within the next 2 fiscal quarters because of this.
Hey guys, it's Blahzaye and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how people are absolutely regretting their votes, especially the ones out in Nebraska. You would never believe that the MAGA farmers would be regretting voting for the super Trump, the super president that was going to make everything better, but the time has finally come. If you guys like these kind of videos, please like and comment down below. I do want to start the conversation and see what kind of change we can implement or how we can help our fellow Americans, guys. If you want to see me in another video, please subscribe so we can go ahead and share this content again and have these fun conversations. Let's get into it.
I'm so excited for everyone to call me a bad person again in my comments, but guess what? I do not care about Nebraska going bankrupt in 6 months. I do not care. I do not care. Maybe a few other of those red states should go bankrupt in 6 months so the blue states can swoop in to save them, so they can understand that we are not the bad ones. We are not the poor ones. We are not the ones who cannot survive under the orange turds' crazy policies. But you know why I don't feel bad for Nebraska? You know why? Because I believe I heard 65% of their workforce is undocumented people, which means they're not coming to work anymore, which means work's not happening, which means all the farmers in Nebraska are going to go bankrupt because they all went out there and voted against their neighbors. 65% of neighbors who are immigrants, okay? Fuck around and find out at this point, you know what I mean? And of course, I do feel bad for those blue people in Nebraska who did not vote for this. So unfortunate. That's what you get for being racist and not wanting immigrants in this country, even though they're paying taxes and contributing, so.
And I would say that one is pretty much a big point to it too. Everybody is paying taxes. Actually, the immigrants, I would say the illegal immigrants are definitely paying their taxes and paying their dues to the society, right? Only if they're getting their money under the table, then of course they're kind of scapegoating the system with that a bit. And let's be centrist, let's be real, and let's have the facts, right? They will be a drain on the system if they're utilizing the public schools, if they're utilizing the healthcare system. We want to be equal across everything and just have the most clearest ideals possible, right? So yes, if they're getting paid under the table and they're still utilizing the public services, that would in turn be a burden. However, let's not pretend, let's do both sides. Let's not pretend that the corporations are not taking advantage here. They really wanted to stop it. All this illegal immigration and everybody coming here illegally, they would severely fine the corporation. Let's not pretend. If they find one illegal immigrant, they would do a host of fines and take away business licenses. If they wanted to be extremely serious about it, instead of just targeting like the individual families and stuff, I don't know. I just want to be as centered as possible on these problems so that we can bring about great ideals and then help everybody out and then bring everybody together, because us as Americans are definitely just being broken apart at this moment in time. Let's continue.
All for fucking Trump. Now with Trump passing the law that if your kid's on if you put your baby dad on child support, they're going to be getting the money from the child, like for child tax. How the fuck does that work?
The funniest thing about this is it isn't even true. These MAGA moms are all over the internet right now screaming and crying about how they regretted voting for Trump because right-wing men who love to control women have spread this rumor all over Twitter, and it's made its way here, stating that if you're a single mother, too bad. If a man pays your child support, he gets to claim your children on his taxes as dependents, even if he hasn't seen them in who knows how long. And they are breaking down. Is this how we win? Well, interestingly enough, it's kind of weird how you don't care how your vote affects anyone else, but you start crying and backtracking when it hypothetically affects you, even if it doesn't actually affect you. And it also shows how susceptible you guys are to misinformation misinformation and how misinformation will literally sway how you think and vote. But regardless, this is how we win. We just tell these single moms out here, spread rumors. Donald Trump signed an executive order stating that you have to pay your baby daddy's car note. Donald Trump signed an executive order stating that you have to pay your baby daddy's fucking mortgage and electric bill. And I guess they'll regret their vote. This is fucking hilarious. Anyways, my name is Mercedes Chandler. Give me a follow or you won't see my face again. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, that is true. I think that's just a big point for us all. Like, we need to be vetting ourselves a little bit more. We see how Trump got in there and just started destroying these executive orders, throwing them out. You get an executive order. You get an executive order. You know, just Oprah and all these executive orders everywhere and making these drastic changes. We haven't had a Democrat do that. There's no Democrat that's come in and make and change like that. So you gotta, give him some credit to that. He came in and made these changes. But the amount of misinformation that's been on the internet has been ridiculous in these times. Millennials are good at it, but we have different generations on both sides that are not good at deciphering that information. We have the Gen Z, which they should be teaching us, like, the millennial, I'm a millennial, how like we should be, wavering our ways through these, misinformation waters, as to say, and then like pinpointing the actual true and fact information, But then we have the boomers that we have to worry about, and we have Gen Alpha that we have to worry about that is coming up that will be the new voters in the future. So this just takes major precedence on, hey, if Trump's pulling out these new executive orders, which there's one each day, so it's really easy to have misinformation and then try to sway people. And there's a lot of people, be honest and throw it down in the comments. If you're just sit there and you're like, okay, well, Trump put out a new executive order. I have to go to work today. I don't have time to read it. What did it say? And then you look up some article or some TikTok vid that pops up on your screen and somebody's saying it too on TikTok. So why would they lie? They're going to get cross-checked anyways. So you just take that for granted, or you literally just see a headline, right? That's what a lot of people do. Put that in the comments. If you're ashamed, that's even better. Please throw that in the comments. Like, honesty is great. Let's continue.
This morning I ended up on Nebraska Talk and it was a bunch of people crying, why does anybody care about Nebraska? When we voted for Kamala Harris, when I cast my vote for Harris, that was me saying, I care about you and I want you to survive and thrive. Okay, you knew better than anybody else that your state thrives and survives off of migrants' backs. Okay, and instead of them waiting for ICE to come, they decided to peace out before they could come and get them. I don't know what to tell you guys anymore. This is what you voted for. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to believe it or not, this is exactly what you voted for. And now you're feeling it. What do you want us to do? You want a government handout? That's socialism. You voted against that. No. Sadly, the reality is that you'll probably have to sell a lot of your farms for pennies on the dollar to large corporations and manufacturers. But don't worry, they'll probably let you work there for minimum wage.
Damn, so many facts thrown in there. I mean, and you could see how if you pull everything back and you try to look at everything from like a God's eye view, how that could have been the plan all along. Trump in reality doesn't super like poor people. I mean, he doesn't even really like veterans that much, to be completely honest. I'm a military guy. But like freaking he was like, hey, but I got some deals and I can make all these farmers, once we start enacting these plans, which kind of goes with my base, and once we get all the immigrants out, they won't really have any workers. They're gonna lose all that cheap labor, and then we just come in, take their farmland because they can't be profitable at all. They're not going to be able to turn any type of profit anymore. They're going to start selling piecemeal all their extremely expensive equipment one by one, and all to the mega corporations, which he loves. He loves the big money. Bring the money to America, right? But then the little guys just get creamed on that. Let's continue to the next video.
So my MAGA mom, who watches Fox News nonstop, had her find out moment on Valentine's Day. She doesn't get out much. She has a lot of health problems, but she got herself together and they were going to go out to dinner at their favorite Mexican restaurant in town. However, when they got there, apparently it's been shut down for good. Shut down.
Bruh. Dude, you cannot make this up, guys.
I want to go to my favorite Mexican restaurant.
And you get to the damn restaurant and it's closed. You're like, what happened to Jose? What happened to Miguel? Hey, they didn't want to be involved with this. It's crazy because even like the legal Latin people are being targeted, guys. It's absolutely insane. Just walking down the street, if you have the wrong tattoos, you could be targeted as well. Let's continue.
So I said to her, because I know they were all Hispanic and I know they all came from Mexico because the owner was extremely wealthy and he would go back from time to time to Mexico. It was a restaurant we'd gone out to, I'm going to go 30 years, love it, excellent food. And I said, you think it had anything to do with the fact that they were Hispanic and from Mexico?
There's a little bit of good news coming out of Nebraska. I mean, if you could call it good news. They have identified a way to cut their budget shortfall pretty much in half. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the story that's happening in Nebraska, there's a lot of panic that the state is going to go bankrupt. And there's some saying it will happen in just the matter of a couple of months because they have a $400 million budget shortfall. There's a lot of different reasons for it. Let me tell you what they are. But a lot of it very much is self-inflicted wounds. And now they're kind of dancing around going, oh my God, what did we do? Nebraska is experiencing right now at a state level what we're all about to face at a federal level. So I think it's important to pay attention there, because this is what happens when you give.
There's why does she have a bunch of Santa Claus-esque emojis going around in her freaking... Sorry, that was distracting me. Let's get back to it.
Giveaways and subsidies and tax breaks to the wealthy, and you do all of these things that in the moment feel right because they get you votes and they get you popularity and they get you all the shit. And then when you have to pay the bills, you realized you've yourself. And that's exactly what Nebraska has done. I think the number one reason that Nebraskans should be concerned is that they've lost their immigrant labor. Nebraska was one of those states that had there's a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture type businesses, and they use a lot of immigrant labor. Whether they're documented or not does not matter. There were people who were not native Nebraskans who had moved there and were working there. Nebraskans, like a bunch of other states, voted for Trump, which told their immigrant population, we're not welcome here. Instead of waiting for the jackboot stormtroopers from ICE to come knock on their doors, the immigrants pieced out. We're going to go someplace where people will use our labor and will like us and will treat us with a little bit of dignity. So they probably hustled their asses to Colorado or California or someplace else where they could get work and they could be safer. So rumor has it that this was 60% of their labor force. And when you lose that much of your labor force, you've got no one to pick your wheat, you got no one to slaughter your cows, you're in big fucking trouble. So that's the start of it. They're not making as much revenue. They're not supplying as much food into the food chain, which, by the way, screws all of us. Our food supply is going to be fucked if this happens. So let's just say that. But they also did a lot of other things, right? They put in corporate tax breaks and they did all this other stuff. Now suddenly they don't have a pot to piss in. Their budget committee has gone back to work and they're trying to find places where they can find this money. And they've identified 165 million more in.
You fucked around with your...
Yeah, so that's a big thing, guys. 60% estimated, of course. But we all know that it's a bunch of freaking immigrant labor. This kind of reminds me of when America also lost a bunch of free labor back in the day, and then they were really angry about it. Hey, it's just a little bit of history, right? History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And Nebraska is currently going through that phase where, hey, you scared away all your really cheap labor. I hope your unemployment rate was really high so that you can get all those unemployed people back to doing the jobs that the immigrants were doing. Hopefully they weren't the black jobs that Trump was talking about.
As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Maybe they weren't. Maybe you can replace those guys with them. You just gotta. You can't scare away and vote for the wrong person against your own interest. That is the main thing. When it's just being able to think about these type of full supply chains, which the major media, I would say obviously Fox News, but they're not technically, they're not news. If you go into the legal documents, Fox News is entertainment. That's what they stated. Back to the video.
Vote. Now it's time you found out. Am I the asshole for cutting off my sons financially after they voted for Trump? I, 52 male, have two sons, Isaac, 22 male, and John, 20 male. My wife and I have always leaned left politically, and we've raised our kids to value equality, compassion, and critical thinking.
And I think this is a major chasm too in the American, the hierarchy and society of things, is because usually you follow what your parents believe in because all those years of teaching and everything, but you have seen it both ways. But I think the major shift has been happening like this past 5 years, pretty much when Trump came into play, to where the kids are usually leaning really left, and then the parents are usually leaning right. They're more conservative because they built up all that wealth, and they want to keep it. They want to conserve it, right? But now we've seen a shift among like genders and young men that have them really leaning right. And the parents right here are leaning left. So that's just an interesting dynamic that's just been happening and cultivating itself across the world, might I add. Let's get back into it.
We've had countless family discussions about politics and the impact of policies on people's lives. So you can imagine my shock when I found out after this last election that both of my sons voted for Trump. It came out during a casual family dinner when I asked, "So, who'd you guys vote for?" expecting them to either dodge the question or name one of the candidates aligned with our values. Isaac shrugged and said, "Trump. His policies just make the most sense right now." John chimed in, "Yeah, I mean, he's about protecting the economy. People like us need someone who gets that." I stared at them, stunned. "People like us?" I asked. "Boy, you've never paid for a single tank of gas, let alone rent or tuition. What exactly do you mean by that?" Isaac rolled his eyes. "Dad, I'm studying business. Trump's pro-business. It's not that deep." "It's plenty deep," I snapped. "You're backing someone who's gutted protections for the environment, undermined health care, and actively targeted marginalized communities." John shook his head. "You're just looking at the negatives. He's strong on immigration and keeping jobs here." The conversation spiraled into a heated debate. I couldn't understand how they, having grown up with every advantage I could provide, could support someone who champions policies that harm so many people. That night I thought about how much my wife and I had sacrificed to give them opportunities. I worked extra hours to cover their tuition so they wouldn't have student loans. I paid for their gas, car insurance, and even groceries. And this is what they choose to do with that privilege? A few days later, I told them my decision. "If you want to support Trump's policies, you should also live by them," I said. "From now on, you'll need to cover your own tuition, rent, and living expenses. Maybe then you'll understand the real-world impact of the policies you're endorsing." Isaac was furious. "Are you serious, Dad? You're just cutting us off because we disagree with you politically." "It's not about disagreement," I said firmly. "It's about accountability. You voted for someone who's against student loan forgiveness, so take out loans. You support someone who doesn't believe in raising the minimum wage, so get a job that pays what it pays and figure it out." John looked hurt. "You're being petty. This isn't how you change someone's mind." "This isn't about changing your mind," I replied. "It's about giving you a dose of reality. FAFO ain't just some cool hashtag you and your little friends use. It means there are consequences to your actions. Political choices have consequences. You're adults now. It's time to act like it. You fucked around with your vote. Now it's time you found out." My wife thinks I'm being too harsh. She worries this will damage our relationship with them long term. She said, "They're young. They're still figuring out their beliefs." "Beliefs have consequences," I told her. "They made a choice. Now they'll learn what that choice means." Some of my friends agree with me, saying it's a fair wake-up call. Others think I'm letting politics come between family and being unnecessarily cruel. So, am I the asshole for cutting off my sons financially because of their political choices? You got a good point. I don't think you're the asshole. I think you're going to let them find out what they fucked around with, their vote. And voting has consequences. Hey, all.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I go 100% with that, Dad. Those kids they're not kids anymore, to be completely honest. They're 18. They're 20 and 22 years old. Men. Those are adult men living off their dad, which they were emulating Trump pretty well. Let's be completely honest. They were emulating Trump pretty well. And then they get all butthurt when they freaking have to pay for themselves and actually have to live within their decisions. It's extremely easy to make those decisions when they do not involve you. This is, as a military dude, you know, I've been in the military for a while. But it pisses me off when people have these little off chance decisions that they want to imply, or these things that they want to go to war or something. They want to state that they want to take some type of land, or like, oh, you shouldn't be doing such and such, when they have no skin in the game. You're making all these little implications that you want something to change, but you're not willing to put yourself on the line to enact that change. But you are good on standing from the outside and then sending somebody else in to make your ideals happen. You're good with that one. So same thing with these sons. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, Trump's great for business. You know, we need the immigration and pro-business and keeping the jobs. Hey, well, you know what? Nebraska has gotten rid of the immigration problem. And now there's a bunch of jobs open that require a lot of people. Get those people in there. You should have no unemployment in Nebraska whatsoever. Get on that minimum wage. Stop having your parents pay for your school. Live like everybody else that's going to be affected by the new policies that you really wanted. That's why you voted Trump in. Let's get on it, right? Don't feel bad. The fact that second that they felt bad that they had to live within the means of somebody else that's affected by the same policies is when you know how bad the policies really are. When they're like, oh, when everybody in their circles like, hey, you're treating your kids bad. You're making them live like all these other poor people that are affected by these policies. Isn't that bad parenting? You're like, no, they're living according to what they voted for. I'm just giving them what they wanted. Let's continue.
All you folks out in Nebraska, how you doing, baby?
Hey, man, we're good. Thanks for asking, White In. But you're going to want to pull that hat up a little bit so you can see this. This is real corn, Nebraska corn, grown with actual tears from my Weegians, or whatever you guys are called. They come out of this pivot or from the sky from the other side of the river over there. So, yes, welcome to TikTok, brother.
News right now, the Republican governor of Nebraska has announced that Republicans in Nebraska have dropped their attempt to change the election rules in the state, making it a winner-take-all state this November.
Tens of thousands of Nebraskan farmers are going to be bankrupt within the next 2 fiscal quarters because of this. They wanted Trump to be president so badly they passed a rule that says it's an all-or-nothing vote, no splits, and they got him in. And now the deportations are coming, and he's about to steal a very large percentage of their already very dwindling workforce. Most of Nebraska's farming and harvesting and production was handled by undocumented workers, and Trump is going to be very strict bringing that handle down on his new deportation laws, and there is not going to be anybody to be working those farms. Crops are going to be dying in the fields while Nebraskan farmers go absolutely bankrupt from the decision they made. And if they think their workers are going to stay, they're not. They're not going to take the chances, not with their family, not with their children, not with their jobs. They're going to go and hide or just outright leave and go somewhere else.
Remember when you guys all said that you were voting for Donald Trump because he was going to bring mortgage rates down faster and grocery prices down faster? Well, he already said he's not going to bring grocery prices down. And now the Fed is saying those rate drops they promised to be cutting in 2025, they're not going to be able to do that because his tariff policy is so inflationary that they're not going to be able to drop those rates down the way they said they were going to. Shoot! Because inflation is going to keep going up. And inflation was on its way down before he won the election. Under, who was that again? Biden-Harris. They were bringing inflation down. But Donald Trump, his policies are inflationary. They're going to be going back up, which means rates can't go back down. Sounds like you F around and find out.
Yeah, so she's absolutely right. They can't bring the rates down anymore. Keeping those rates up is what's protecting that money supply from going absolutely crazy. And amidst of all the new tariffs that are about to just rampage through everybody in this new Trump economy, guys, this has been a long one. Let me know what you think down in the comments so we can all learn together and make better decisions in the future and hopefully help out everybody, all of our fellow Americans. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.